you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks.
All right. So, um, yeah, before we start looking at the replay, I just want to go ahead and get to know you as a player a little, and then also, um, your take on how the replay went.
All right, yeah. I've already watched it once, and I see like two specific mistakes that I made for sure. But yeah,
So,
it's like I yeah. What do you want to say?
yeah, I thought your mechanics were really good. There was a
Thank
lot
you,
of
thank you.
yeah, there's a lot of I feel like you had a lot of kill pressure and were really good in the 1v1s. Um, I do think though, there's a lot of improvement for the overall decision making, so hopefully I can help you there. How long have you been playing Overwatch?
Oh, for eternity. I started season 2 Overwatch 1,
Okay, a while now.
and
Yeah.
yeah, played. I think I did like a 2 year break or like another 1 year break, but I think I must have at least like 3,000 hours in this game.
Okay. What rank is this? Like,
This is GM1.
okay. Um, Let me go ahead.
Barely.
Yeah, I'll share my screen. So, what were your thoughts on the match? Watch it over.
Well, it was very frustrating because it felt like we were like winning at the beginning and then it turned into yeah, just losing basically.
Okay.
And especially that one part where the Mercy got away with 1 HP, I think that really like messed everything up.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, it's
Um,
very unlucky.
all right, I'm gonna go ahead and start playing. I think in the beginning here, one of the
Yeah, in the
most.
beginning I
Mhm.
think I go in too hard.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like you get really impatient here. Um, a lot of the times in your engages, and instead of just waiting for an advantage, because if we're like thinking out how you can have advantage, it's either a cooldown, positioning, or health. Um, so the enemies have full cooldowns, and you're going in alone here. And I noticed that you like
Yeah.
to go in alone, and you're very used to taking clean up fights almost. Um,
Mm.
so a lot of the time, you'll go like in 100% here. Where if we look at because like sometimes that would be really good, but in this situation, the only reason why I say it's bad is like it's okay timing too. It creates space for your team. No one else is ready to follow up on it, and it doesn't help your team at all. So if you
Yeah,
had
I
like a
see.
monkey,
I get it.
yeah, or if your Ana was ready to follow up, or if you knew your Widowmaker would be going to high ground, then it'd be really good, and that'd actually be a really good play, even though you commit your full resources into it. But like now here, this engage, the exact same thing, has so much more value because you provide kill pressure. Everyone is looking at you, and now the space is actually like able to be held.
I see. Yeah, they're giving it up a little bit.
Yeah. And then I like how you control the high ground. That's very good. And then this entire fight is just all clean up. So it's all mechanics. Just let it play through.
Yeah, almost died.
Yep. Okay, now we're into the second fight, and pretty much your team just loses this fight. Not much that you can do other than maybe. Yeah, no, I feel like the only thing that you could do better here is go high ground, but I think most of what I want to talk about is your engagements before and when the fight starts. For example, like when you're playing out here alone, I feel like you have the right idea of brawling into the monkey, but then you start
Yeah,
overextending.
I see that.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of like situational context. Because if your team is here, this is fine, but um, again, it's like a lot of
I guess
risk.
it's because I play so much Mei, because with Mei you basically like,
Yeah, you have
you
bailouts.
can, yeah, you have a bailout, exactly.
Um, yeah, the MeiMain. I love
Yeah,
playing Mei
actually,
too.
yeah. I play, basically, I'm not a one trick, but I mostly play Mei, I think,
Okay.
yeah, most of the time.
And then this blade here, I think it's a decent blade. you have the right idea, but I would love to see you just wait a little bit more. Because not everyone's back from the team fight, first of all, and the most important thing is they have everything. They have all their cooldowns. There's nothing that they don't have to deal with the blade. And so,
Mm,
um, and not just that, it's more of like the attention. Because if they have all their cooldowns, but they're not looking at you, and they don't know the blade is coming because they're looking at your team, that's a much better scenario. And, I mean, it works now, but just as a general, like, habit building thing, it's a bit more consistent if you just wait for your team.
yeah, I should have done that.
And that goes for, like, initiations and not cleanup. Because if you're, like, mid-fight cleanup, then you don't actually have to wait for your team to come back. If it's like a 3v5, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Then, again, this... I noticed most of your deaths result from you just overextending in front of your team and trying to play like your team is there when your team really isn't.
I guess so. Yeah, that's. Yeah, the diva was like kind of. That fight, I remember.
And then I'll explain in a second. Well, actually, I'll explain now. Do you know like the overall structure of how team fights are in Overwatch?
I'm not so sure. I guess you yeah the tank engages first usually, and then the team follows.
Okay, so it's different for every team composition. So it could be that you're like flanking to set up. So usually the team fights go as like pre-fight, and then it goes into mid-fight. Then mid-fight lasts the longest into cleanup, and then cleanup back into the pre-fight. And so it goes through this like rotation over and over again. And so I'm gonna go into depth like explaining each one and how you know which part of the fight you're in. In pre-fight, usually no one's shooting at each other, and you're literally, or like most people are walking and everyone's rotating to get into place. But then as soon as the first contact is made and someone needs to like, I'd say one or more players, like if there's a duel on the sideline or if the tanks initiate, then you enter into the mid fight. And then, once the fight is decided and it's pretty much one-sided, and it's like it'll take a miracle to bring the fight back, that's cleanup. So,
all right, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
The reason why I'm explaining this is because I noticed most of your engages are in pre-fight, and that's fine because you're in dive and you can initiate the pre-fight by yourself, or not by yourself, but you as a DPS can initiate the pre-fight. Whereas like if you're on Rhine comp, it doesn't make sense for you to like as a Mei player walk in front of your Rhine. You know what I mean? So it's okay if you initiate in the pre-fight. But you have to make sure that you know that the enemy team has all of their cooldowns, all of the attention, and they're ready to deal with it. So you shouldn't expect to get a kill immediately at a pre-fight, unless you're on, someone who can really get a pick, or there's a really good opportunity, like if there's someone flanking and you can contest them. And then once we get into mid-fight, that's probably where you're going to see most of the value, or like just into mid-fight, like right here, where you're diving in with your diva. And they forget, or their attention is stretched wide enough where you can go in and get a kill, I guess. I think one of the examples here is in the first fight. Well, I won't go back, but in the first fight after the initial dive, and then you guys are on cart, then you guys are still in the mid fight and you're regrouping, and so it kind of reverses into a pre-fight again. And then you go back in and they don't have all the resources, so then you're able to go into the cleanup. And the cleanup is probably where you'll see most of your kills. But, so, well, actually I'll go back and do an example of like the very beginning. So, we know that the game is still in pre-fight the entire time here. And it just gets into mid-fight here. But they still have most of their cooldowns, and if we like look at the resources on their team, the cooldowns, positioning, and health, they barely have any less cooldowns, and they barely have any less positioning, and they have full health. And so, would it make sense for you to going in and take this engagement, like what advantages do you have on the enemy team to be able to get a kill? Not too many unless your team goes with you. And so this exact same scenario, if it was in cleanup and then they don't have their cooldowns, they have decent positioning, maybe they have a little less health, then it's a lot better than just a little bit of cooldowns, the same positioning and the same amount of health right now. And so it's just about the timing and knowing that your team is not with you, and having like the situational context of what do they have to deal with you, and you know, is it a good time to take that engagement and try to get the kill. Then and going over the Mei gameplay, you got nanoed. I didn't even notice that. Yeah, this is funny. I was watching you like fly. But in the second point, I think, yeah, as a Mei player,
Yeah.
you probably have like the intuition that Mei is able to hold a lot of space. Mei is almost like a second tank, and so
Yeah, I agree.
this death is kind of unfortunate because I think that you thought your healers were gonna heal you, but they never healed you, and that's why you didn't shift. But
Yeah.
going into this fight, what I like that you did here is instead of playing with your team, you took this off angle where they have to contest you. What it does to them, yeah, playing down here. So instead of playing up on high ground and attacking from the same angle as your team into the enemies, you force them to look at you from a different angle and commit more resources. And you're able to trade your resources for theirs at a much higher rate. So now when they look at you down on the low ground, you sacrifice just your positioning and one cooldown, and they sacrifice the high ground, the positioning, and the positioning, a little bit of health, and a little bit of cooldowns. But it's so important for your team, because if we look at how this fight plays out, and this was really good for you. Your team gets the high ground. Your team is able to save you. They don't have the high ground anymore, and it like enables your team. Even though that you don't kill them specifically, this off angle really screws them. It was more of a hard flank, but it worked out in the sense of an off angle. And so if we go into this next fight here, where you're on the low ground in main, I feel like it's not that bad of a play. I don't exactly remember what happened here. Oh, your tank died. That's what happened. But I would love to see you playing from an off angle, like in server, or taking the high ground instead of playing in main with your team, because you can almost like anchor the map and make the enemies deal with you, and so it creates space indirectly rather than directly. I don't think that there's too much that you could have done in this fight, but
Yeah, that was unfortunate.
wait, did the EMP stop the blizzard?
Yes, that's new. I've never seen that before.
Okay, I didn't know about that. I guess I was in the patch notes.
That must have been coming with the Jungle Green update.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't like that.
Well, Mei is too strong, I guess.
I guess so. Summer was just strong enough already. But I think, the part that I most wanted to talk about is like when you're engaging, because
I engaged too early. That's basically the main thing.
Yeah, the one thing that I want to exemplify again is like why you should be engaging. It's because they have less cooldowns, positioning, or health for you to be able to get kill pressure. Because if you're just pointlessly engaging rather than poking them down and then taking more positioning, lowering their health and lowering their cooldowns and trading off until you can engage and maybe get a kill, your engagements are going to have a really low probability of success, and it's not going to be beneficial for your team. So optimally, for example, if you were to let me scroll back, right here when they walk out.
They use Suzu, yeah.
Yeah, they use Suzu and they're about to walk out. Yeah. This would be a really good time to engage. I think that's what you were trying to do here. But Or like even better, this is the exact same engage that you did at the very beginning. But if you look, it's literally like their health is down. They have no
Oh
cooldowns.
shit! Yeah,
Yeah.
I should have done that.
Suzuka's hack is about to be canceled if she tries. She doesn't have dynamite. He has no jump and bubble. And then their positioning is about the same. But now we can see the, I mean, of course that your death kind of led into this. But this exact same engage would have probably net you 3 kills. Because, yeah, I feel like you
know.
could have gotten it.
Yeah, I see that now.
Um,
Damn
yeah,
it.
this is like a hypothetical situation because, you know, you died earlier to make this happen. But just as an example of like if you wait a little, and I think this advice, I want to preface it by saying only in this team composition is this relevant, or like relevant to the same degree, because it doesn't transfer over to Brawl or Spam, where it's beneficial for you to take 1v1s on the side. But when you're on dive with like a D.Va, or if even better if you have a Tracer or Sombra, if you just wait for one of them to do something, or like, you know, just play in the neutral and then wait for either your tank, your second DPS, or your healer, like an Ana Bionade, an offensive healer, or like a Lucio, to give you like the all is okay, then you can go. You don't even have to like necessarily think about all of their cooldowns, positioning, and health. You'll kind of just look at the body language of your team and realize, okay, something's going on, so I can take advantage of that and go in. And there's probably and just use your general intuition and like your feeling of the team fight, and say they probably have less cooldowns, positioning, and health because what my teammate just did or is going to do, and so I'm going to follow up with them. And so, rather than thinking about it as you're initiating too early, I want you to think about it more of you're not playing to your team's win condition, because that way it can transition over. And, you know, if you're initiating too late, you'll realize that it's because my win condition is no longer dive. It's supposed to be like brawling in the front line, or whatever your team is allowing you to do.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I did basically not look at the team for too much. I kind of always engaged immediately.
Yeah. I think that's it's really good to look at your team, because if you can use them as much as possible, especially in like ranked, where it's like on one hand you have to trust your teammates, and on the other hand you can't trust them for shit. That's like the ranked experience. But the best way to go about it is think about like, my teammates are going to do their own thing, whatever that may be. Like, God forbid it's like Reddit Lucioing in the backline. But if whatever they're doing, I want to use it to my advantage and basically like add to what they're doing, or at least make what they're doing relevant to my play.
That sounds like a very non-toxic and good way to deal with it.
Yeah. And the good thing is, even if someone's playing unconventionally, if you think about it that way, instead of like, I have to go earlier or I have to go later, then you'll start to see like, okay, if they're going earlier, then I should go in earlier with them. And so I've also, yeah, it'll reduce the frustration in ranked, because if you have a player that's really bad and they're doing this really dumb thing, if you do the dumb thing with them, you'll get more value rather than just watching them do the dumb thing and just sitting in spawn and saying this game is lost, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that.
Do you have any questions about the anything we talked about?
No, I'm actually like, I am surprised that I really missed like one very crucial moment in the game. So I think that helped me already a lot. Like the engagement on top, the second time I engaged, where I went the different angle. Well, I didn't understand that was bad decision making.
Well,
I was just like, unlucky, I guess.
also,
That was, yeah.
one small thing that I want to mention, like about I noticed about Overwatch players, is if you don't know exactly like why your engagement doesn't work, it's hard to like, if you really want to break it down, like if I was talking to a professional player right now, I would have them think about this like all the time. where it's like in your head this engagement no longer works and you can no longer engage from this place, right? And the way I know that you're thinking that is because when the exact same situation happens and that would have worked, so right now when their monkey is no longer there and you see it, like I can tell that you look inside of there, think I can dash in, and then think, okay, it didn't work before, so I'm gonna try something different and go for main this time. Because you saw them, they were low, and you were thinking about it. But you thought, okay, it didn't work last time. Whereas the reason why it didn't work last time was the timing, and not the fact that this is a bad engagement. And so it's kind of like a bit of like irony, in a sense. But
Yeah, very unlucky. I mean, not unlucky, but kind of a little bit.
yeah, the important thing is like now you know why it didn't work, and that not that it's a bad engagement, but it's like an unwise engagement. You know, it's an unfavorable engagement because they have more. They're ready to deal with you going in, and so I mean this window still works, and that's like the main point. It still works. It's just under the right context, and now knowing the context, you should be able to like learn in your next games. Like, okay, I can do that same thing just at a different time, and realize why it's wrong instead of just like Pavloving yourself never to go into that window again.
Exactly. I'm gonna try to think more about the circle of game fights that you told me about.
Yeah,
I mean, I kind of know already, obviously, because it's. I mean, team fights are like basically the whole game, but I've never really thought about the rotation part.
yeah, and then I'll give you an example of like the rotation part because that's more abstract. But when your team is setting up here, if we look, because you're no longer at the spawn doors, or let's look at the first fight. The first fight is usually the best fight to look at. Yeah, more so the easiest way is to look at your tank for your win condition, because if you're not playing how your tank wants to play, you'll never be with the win condition. And so the setup here, your team is still getting into place. Like your Widowmaker is not ready to shoot. Your Ana doesn't have LOS. And your D.Va doesn't have space yet. But she's trying to create space. She just forced cooldowns and she's resetting. And your Mercy's, it's Mercy. So she can be wherever. But yeah, during the setup, your team is getting ready and they haven't even pushed cart yet. And they're more focused on getting ready to like play for themselves rather than actually start the mid fight and start fighting.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just hinting there.
Yeah. And I'm just like showing it so then you can see like what your team is doing from a different perspective. But yeah.
Yeah, I see. I look at the Widowmaker. She's like basically not ready.
Okay, so one thing to actually put this into your gameplay, the first thing that you should do whenever you get into a ranked match, and especially now that you're on Gibraltar, you know like you don't have to think this all out because you already know like you have a D.Va, you have a Widowmaker trying to get in place, and an Ana trying to get in place. At the beginning of every game, look at what your team locks, and then think, how does that change my gameplay? Usually, what I think is how does it change it from last game? Because I'm like really used to playing how I was last game. So if the team comp differs drastically, like if you had a Bat Lucio and a Reinhardt, you would never go into this room, right? Like your Reinhardt would never ever be with you. It would be more so like that you'd come around here, right? And so look at your tank first of all and think about the win condition of your team, and then factor in your healers and your other DPS, and then the win condition will become a bit more clear. And once you factor it or think about it, so your win condition is you gain space through diving. You have a Widowmaker to hold space and take use of that space when you're holding space. So it's very explosive in your team comp and engaging at the right times. Versus, if you had a Reinhardt on King's Row, then you'd be like spamming in main. You know what I mean? Like brawling just the enemy tank in the front line and building ults. Or looking to take a flank on the sidelines. But like with this team comp, if you take a flank on the sidelines, it won't do your D.Va any good really. Unless it's like really favorable. Like unless you went on the Sombra right now. But
Yeah, I totally get it. I was not thinking about the space aspect, especially the Widowmaker. Whenever I have Widowmaker, I just expect them to click heads all the time.
Mhm.
But yeah, they do create a lot of space. That makes total sense.
I think that's all I have for this one, because that was like the most important thing that I can see in your gameplay. And I think the
Mm.
easiest way, yeah, is just identify the win condition, and then every time you die, you know, or every time you respawn, or every time in the pre-fight when you're not thinking about anything else, just think about the win condition and what you can do for how you can adjust your gameplay for the win condition of your team, and then you'll start to see like a lot of like more consistently consistency, because it might not even be winning at first,
Mm.
because you might just be wrong about what your win condition is, but over time you'll see like, okay, this isn't working, and then you'll start, those like 3 out of 10 times when you're not playing for your win condition or you're doing something random will disappear, and you'll start to do the right thing every single time, or at least like something that's okay every single time.
All right. Well,
um
that was actually very helpful, I think. That's very awesome that you do that. Thank you.
yeah, no worries, you're welcome. Do you have
I'm
any?
gonna try to think about it and let you know if I see any drastic changes. Probably not immediate, but I'm gonna try keep it. I'm gonna try to keep thinking about the game more instead of just going in.
Cool. Do you have any last questions, or?
Uh, Not right now. Maybe if maybe something pops up later, I'll just text it to you then.
Yeah, yeah. I'll gladly answer. Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, but that was actually very awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good rest of your day. Yeah, feel free to DM me
You
again.
too. Sure. See you around.